قال ربي نجني من القوم الظالمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله خاتم الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. The verse I recited from Surah Al-Qasas, Ayah 21. So he left there, fearing, awaiting, and said, My Lord, deliver me from the unjust people. I'm sure all of you have heard the story of Nabi Musa alayhi salam, and this particular verse pertains to the time when the Prophet Musa had to leave the city he was in, the city of Pharaoh. The cause was there was a fight between a Jew and a non-Jew, and Musa alayhi salam had to take a stand. Now, while I'm talking about this issue, you are thinking, what has this to do with Imam Hussain alayhi salam? The reason is this verse was recited by the Imam the day he left Medina. He left Medina, he prayed al-Fajr and left while it was still dark, and when he left, he recited this verse. A few of the companions heard him reciting, and I will come to exactly why he recited this verse. The story goes back to when Musa alayhi salam entered the city quietly during the dark of night. And as he was passing through, he saw a fight between two men, between a Jew and a non-Jew. The non-Jew was from Pharaoh's people, and he was beating the Jewish man. So Musa alayhi salam said to the non-Jew, do not beat this man severely. Let him go. For whatever he has done, Allah will punish him. Show some mercy. This non-Jew refused and carried on beating the Jewish man. The Jewish man called out to Musa for help. The beating was so severe, Prophet Musa alayhi salam was afraid for the Jewish man's life. So he intervened. He attempted to stop the fight, and without meaning to, the non-Jew was hurt and killed. By accident, of course. Those Mufassirin who have wrongly said Musa alayhi salam committed a sin or made wrong, and use what the words that he used, that this is from the shaitan's amal, this هذا من عمل الشيطان. That's not what he means. He means this fighting leads to evil, and the cause of the fighting is shaitan. The reason why two people fight is always shaitan. He's behind this. So Musa alayhi salam felt sad that the fight had to lead to the death of one person. The next day, as he was passing through the town, again at night, because he went to see his followers, the da'wah at that time was secretive. It was not an open da'wah. He was still living with Pharaoh's people. He was still living in the palace of Pharaoh. So the da'wah until then was a secret da'wah, as it was during the early part of our Prophet's life. The beginning of the message was secret to start with, and then the Prophet was informed by Jibreel that Allah commands you to start the public da'wah. So Musa alayhi salam passes through, and he sees the very same man, the very same Jewish man, again in a fight. Al-Dhahar Mushkilchi, this guy is a troublemaker. Again, the Jewish man calls out for help. Musa alayhi salam can tell that this person is looking for trouble, because yesterday Musa helped him, so again he's causing a trouble today, so that Musa will save him. So he criticizes this man. He says, you are a troublemaker. You are one who looks for mischief. The Jewish man is afraid that Musa now will not help him. Not only that, he will surrender him to the authorities. So he says to him, are you going to kill me like you killed that man yesterday? Now the other person who is hearing this knows that Musa alayhi salam killed somebody yesterday. So he runs and informs the authorities. He goes to the palace, to Pharaoh's men, and he says, Musa killed a man from our people yesterday. In the tafasir, they mention that there is Mu'min al-Fir'aun. Some mention his name, some do not. Those that mention his name say he is Hizqil. He is a good man from the people of Pharaoh. He comes running to Musa alayhi salam, informing him. He says to him, they are planning to kill you. They are planning to do evil to you. Leave this town. Get away from here. Go somewhere where you will be safe. And this leads us to the verse which says, فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا خَائِفًا يَتَرَقَّبُ. He left fearing, awaiting, and asked Allah to deliver him, to protect him from the unjust people. This was where he was born. This was where he grew up. This is where he lived all his life. And now he had to go somewhere foreign. Somewhere where perhaps he did not speak the language, where he did not know the people. He did not know what to wear or to eat or how to behave. He was on his own. Only Allah would help him. So the fear Musa alayhi salam had is not fear for himself or his life. Because we know that Allah does not choose cowards to spread his message. Allah never chooses anybody who is afraid of fighting for his cause, who is afraid of standing up for justice. In fact, the bravest of all time was our Prophet himself. And I can relate an incident to prove this. Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullah alayhi says one day in the battle of Uhud, when the battle was very, very difficult, when we were outnumbered and the fighting was tough, arrows and swords, even stones were thrown at us, we would take shelter behind the Prophet. This is Ali alayhi salam. This is Amir al-Mu'mineen, Batal Khaybar. This is the hero of Islam, saying that when the battle was difficult, we took cover and shelter behind the Prophet. And the Prophet would lead the way, we were behind him. Nowadays we see presidents and kings surrounded by bodyguards, hundreds of men just to go from one place to another. This is in a battle and the Prophet led the way. Salamun alayhi. So Allah does not choose weak people or cowards to spread his message. So what then is Prophet Musa afraid of? If he is not afraid for his life, or if he's not afraid of getting injured or being taken to court, what is he afraid of? He is afraid for his followers. This is what the tafasir say. He is afraid that if he is killed or if he is harmed, there is no one to support his men. Those who have followed his mission, those who have followed his da'wah, have nowhere to turn to. And if their leader, Musa alayhi salam, is killed, then what hope is there for the little man in the street? The person who does not have any supporter. What happens then? So Musa alayhi salam leaves the town fearing for his followers, for the Jewish people, Banu Israel, that supported him. Now, relating this to the story of Imam Hussain, what has this incident got to do with Imam leaving Medina? Similarities are there. Medina was the city of the Prophet, Medina al-Rasul. It is where Imam Hussain was born. It is where he grew up. It is where he saw the best of his times. He used to sit in his grandfather's lap. He used to sit by the minbar of the Prophet. The Prophet used to carry him and Imam Hassan alayhi salam with him every day when he used to go to the masjid to pray. The famous incident where one day the Prophet was in sujood, Imam Hussain was very young, a toddler, maybe 1 year old, and he climbed on the back of the Prophet, salawatullah alayhi. And the Prophet had to prolong his sujood. He stayed in sujood for a very long time. When he finished the prayer, the companion said to him, Ya Rasulullah, did you receive wahi? Did you receive revelation? He said, no. They said, why then was the sujood, your prostration, so long? Why did you take so long? He said, because Al-Hussein was on my back. I did not want to get up from sujood and he falls and is hurt. Ajib. The feelings of Imam Hussain are more important than the prayer of all these Muslims. The Prophet prolonged the sujood to make sure Imam Hussain was not hurt. This is the standing of Imam Hussain in the eyes of Allah and the Prophet. So this is where Imam Hussain alayhi salam grew up. This is where he lived all his life. It is not easy for him to get up and go somewhere else, to relocate. And for him to do so, there must be a very good reason. So if the fear of Musa alayhi salam is different from the fear of Hussein, what is the fear of Hussein? What is he afraid of? Why is he using this verse? What is the reason he is narrating this verse as he is leaving? Well, first of all, we know it cannot be fear of violence or going to war or to battle. Because Imam Hussain alayhi salam, we know who his father is. We know who his brother is. We know what his background is. Imam Hussain alayhi salam was born in the 3rd year of Hijrah, the year of Al-Khandaq. The year when Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullah alayhi stood before this giant, Amr ibn Wud al-Amiri. The riwayat say his helmet took 4 people to carry, just his helmet. His body took about 10 men to carry afterwards, just his body. His chain armor took 3 men just to take off and then tried to take away slowly, slowly. A huge man. So big his feet used to touch the ground when he was saddled on his horse. And when he crossed the Khandaq and he looked around to the Muslims, everybody was scared. There was nobody who was willing to fight this man. 3 times Rasulullah stood and said, who will come out and fight this man? Who seeks Jannah? Who will fight for me? Who will fight for Allah? Who will fight for Islam? And 3 times nobody stood up except Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullah. Which is why the Prophet says, this strike of Ali is worthier than Ibadat al-Thaqalan, than the worship of everybody out there. Just this one blow of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Because all of Iman is going to fight all of Kufr. This is decision time. If Amir al-Mu'mineen loses, Kufr takes over. Islam stops. Everything is hinged on this one blow from Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullah. So this is his father. This is Imam Hussein's father. He was born in the year that Khandaq took place. The year after Uhud. Before Hunayn. Before the other battles. He saw his father come back when he was a toddler with injuries on him. The narrations say, never did Amir al-Mu'mineen come back from a battle, but that he was bloodied. He had scars and injuries on his feet, on his hands, on his arms, on his face. Every single time he came back. Why? Because Amir al-Mu'mineen was always the first one in the battle. They never saw a mark on his back because he never turned his back to the enemy. He was always facing the enemy forwards. So this is the environment Imam Hussain grew up in. And it carried on afterwards. Some narrations say that even during the time of the Khulafa, the Imam took part in the Futuhat. Fath Afriqa, Fath Istanbul, Fath Tabaristan. That the Imams, Al-Hasan and Hussain, took part in these. They believed in the goodness of these campaigns. And afterwards, Ma'arakat al-Jamal was the first war which Amir al-Mu'mineen took part in without Rasulullah. But he was ordered to. The Prophet told him that you will come one day when you need to fight the rebellious people. And these were the rebellious ones. And who was leading the battle? Al-Hasan and Hussain. So much so that Amir al-Mu'mineen would cry out, take away these 2 from me. Otherwise, the line of the Prophet will be cut off if they are killed. And he ordered his son Muhammad al-Hanafiyyah to take the lead. Ma'arakat Siffin, again, we see for days Al-Hasan and Hussain taking part in this battle. Never once to sit and through computers or through emails to command battles. No. Swords in hands, first one in the battle. And the same in Ma'arakat al-Nahrawan. So Al-Hussain Salamullah alayhi is not somebody who's afraid of combat, not somebody who's afraid of warfare, not somebody who's new to this. He has seen bloodshed before. He has seen himself lose an uncle, Ja'far. He has seen himself lose many of his friends and companions in warfare, in battle. So this is not new for him. So what then is the meaning of the Imam's usage of this verse? وَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا خَائِفًا. What is he afraid of? Every single person who has studied the seerah of Imam Hussain says that he did not want to cause any bloodshed in the city. He did not want to violate the sanctity of Medina. He did not want the city of the Prophet to see any harm and bloodshed. He did not want his blood to be spilled, his holy blood to be spilled in such a place, next to the grave of the Prophet, next to the grave of Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayhi, next to the grave of Al-Hasan salamullah alayhi. He did not want this to occur in front of the eyes of the Prophet. Now, there was another time when somebody had a similar choice. Abdullah ibn Zubair. He could have decided to do the same thing, to leave Mecca and Medina and go somewhere else, but he took refuge by the Kaaba and inside Medina. And history tells us what kind of bloodshed we saw there. He did not care for the sanctity of these 2 towns. Whereas Rayhanat Rasulullah, Al-Hussain Salamullah alayhi, knows this is not the place for warfare and bloodshed. So he leaves. And he is afraid when he goes to Mecca of being killed inside Mecca. In the holiest place in Islam. In the holiest place on earth. Which is why he repeats this verse when he leaves Mecca as well. Because he was afraid that he was going to be killed there. Banu Umayyah did not respect relations, did not respect descendancy, did not respect your knowledge or your clan or your position. They had no respect at all for these things. They only respected power and the sword. They would do anything. Marwan ibn al-Hakam tells the governor of Medina, do not let Hussein get away. Take the bay'ah from him tonight, now. And if he does not give you bay'ah, kill him. This is what the logic Banu Umayyah had. Either you follow us or we kill you. No third choice. No other option. Al-Hussein Salamun alayhi understands this. He knows he cannot deal with these kind of people in the same mentality that they want to treat him with. So he leaves Medina. He goes to Mecca. Banu Umayyah follow him to Mecca. Yazid sends assassins to Mecca to kill the Imam. Because he knows during the Hajj it is very busy. The Imam cannot be protected all the time. And there is a good opportunity to have him killed. And Imam leaves Mecca Yawm al-Tawriyah. This is the 8th of the Hijjah, the day before Arafah, when everybody is preparing to start the A'mal of Hajj. This is when Imam Hussain leaves. So as people in their thousands, hundreds of thousands are coming to Mecca, Imam Hussain Salamun alayhi is leaving Mecca. So what is it so important that you are inside Mecca the day when the A'mal are about to start and you do not do Hajj? There must be a very good reason. In fact, there has to be a reason so important, it is more important than one of the pillars of Islam, Al-Hajj. It is because Imam knows his mission is greater than the Hajj, greater than the ibadah for himself. And also that the Hajj will not be completed if there is bloodshed inside. People in their hundreds will be slaughtered. Imam is afraid for them. Imam is afraid that these people will suffer because of him. Banu Umayyah hit the Kaaba with catapults. They demolished the Kaaba. They did not just strike the Kaaba, they demolished the Kaaba. In Medina, there was bloodshed. They say blood was running, people's feet were soaked. For 40 days, people could not walk anywhere without stepping on blood. 10,000 of the reciters and memorizers of the Quran were killed. Several companions, in the hundreds, companions of the Prophet, people who had seen the Prophet, were killed when Banu Umayyah entered Medina. Now would Imam Hussain Salamullah alayhi stay and decide to fight and have his blood shed there? Or in Mecca, the house of Allah? No. He decides to leave in order to preserve the sanctity of Mecca and Medina. So when he recites this verse, فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا خَائِفًا, it does not mean he is afraid for himself. It does not mean he is afraid for his life or afraid of getting injured or afraid of fighting. It means he is afraid for the Muslims there and he is afraid for the sanctity of this holy city. Because Banu Umayyah would not blink an eye to shed blood in Mecca and Medina. So this is why he recites this verse as he is leaving. And as he leaves Yawm al-Tawriyah, hundreds of people walk past him. They recognize, this is Al-Hussein ibn Ali, this is Al-Hussein ibn Fatima. Sayyidi, where are you going? And the question is, I'm going to Al-Iraq. Why are you going to Iraq? This is Al-Hajj time. It is better for you here. You are from Al-Hijaz, you are from Medina, from Mecca. What are you doing in Iraq? When he left Medina, or as he was leaving Medina, Abdullah bin Abbas stops him. He says, Sayyidi, where are you going? What is your plan? He says, I am going to Kufa. I have been called there, I have followers there. He says, Sayyidi, do you not remember your father's time? Some of them would listen, some would not. Some would fight, some would not. You cannot trust these people by what they say. Imam replies, he says, while there is one good person in these people, while one of them is truthful, it is wajib on me to go there. While one person will respect my da'wah, while one will listen to me, while one will honestly take a sword and fight with me, then this is enough for me. It is wajib on me. Abdullah bin Abbas carries on. He says to him, I heard Amir al-Mu'mineen say this about Ahl Kufa, and I heard your brother Hassan say this about Kufa, and I was there during these times. Perhaps you should put this off. Perhaps you should wait a while. Muhammad ibn Hanafiyyah hears that his brother is leaving. He comes. He holds onto the reins of the horse of Al-Hussein. He holds onto the reins. And Muhammad ibn Hanafiyyah is ill at that time. He's over 50 years old and he's not feeling well, which is why he does not go to Karbala. He's an ill man, he's a sick man. And he holds onto the reins. He pleads with his brother. He says, brother, do not go. I fear for you should you go. I fear there will not be a grandson of the Prophet after you. And you are not going alone. You are taking with you Ali al-Akbar, Shabih Rasulullah. You are taking with you Zayn al-Abidin, Ali ibn al-Hussein. You are taking with you Zainab. You are taking with you Al-Abbas. You are taking with you Ali al-Asghar, and so on and so forth. You're taking all your family with you. You're not going by yourself. If all of you are killed, there will be nobody left from Banu Hashim. Nobody left who knows the true Risala, who knows true Islam. Who will teach the Prophet? Who will teach the Prophet's message after you? So, Imam Hussain alayhi salam says, I do not leave to fight for gain or to be tyrannical or to take positions or to regain something. I fight for reform in my grandfather's ummah. I want to reform what is happening in this ummah. Reform means you put something back the way it was. You change something back to the way it was after something has been taken away from its place. That means Islam moved to a new direction, or Islam was being changed. So it became wajib, amr bil ma'roof, for Imam to put back Islam the way it was. Because we now have a Khalifa, supposedly Khalifa to Rasulullah, the successor to the Prophet, who openly says, I drink alcohol, I play with monkeys, I gamble, I listen to music, I dine with women and I party all night, and I'm still the successor to the Prophet, and you must obey me. This is not possible. We cannot follow somebody who directly goes against Islam and he says, I am the leader of Islam. This is not possible. Muawiyah was much cleverer than Yazid. Muawiyah would say, I'm a companion of the Prophet. I was there in the early years of Islam. I narrate such and such hadith. He was also a poet. He had some knowledge of Islam. He was much more cleverer than his son. So people could not say Muawiyah is directly against Islam, which was much more difficult. Which is the reason why, in the end, Imam Hussain took the sulh. And we'll talk about this in a few nights' time. And it is the reason why Imam Hussain, for 10 years, during Muawiyah's time, he did not fight against Muawiyah. 10 years. So before people say that Imam Hussain was more courageous, Imam Hussain was weak and cowardly, remember this: 10 years Imam Hussain sat under Muawiyah, more than his brother did. So it is wajib, it became wajib on the Imam to leave Medina to go and reform Islam. And Muhammad ibn Hanafiya is holding on to the reins of the horse of Imam Hussain salam alayhi. Al-Hussain says, I will go to the resting place of my grandfather. I will go to the grave of my grandfather and see if I can receive inspiration from him. So he delays his trip one night. He goes to visit his grandfather's grave, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He falls asleep on the grave. He wakes up, he sees in his dream, he has seen in his dream the Prophet informing him that he will be killed in Karbala, that he must go to Karbala, that he must take his family with him to Karbala, and he must leave now. He receives it very, very clearly, one by one, step by step. He knows exactly what he must do. There is no doubt anymore. So in the morning, as soon as the adhan for Al-Fajr is recited, the Imam prays Al-Fajr, commands his family to pray as soon as possible, and prepares to leave. The servant comes and knocks at the door of Muhammad ibn Hanafiya. He says to him, maybe you will reach Hussein, maybe you'll not. He's leaving now. And Muhammad rushes to his brother. Where are you going? He says, I listened to you, I waited one night. And I went to visit my grandfather and he informed me it is wajib on me. I have an obligation to do. I must go to Karbala. I must go to these people. These people have sent me a da'wah. They've said, we will fight for you. We will fight against Yazid. I must listen to this. Yazid has forced me into a situation. ألا وأن الداعي ابن الداعي قد خيرنا بين اثنتين بين السلة والذلة وهيهات من الذلة. He says, this da'i ibn da'i, this unknown son of an unknown father, is forcing us to choose, or forcing me to choose between two. Between running away, disappearing, and between giving in to him. Muhammad ibn Hanafiya says, Sayyidi, go to Yemen. In Yemen you have followers, your father has many lovers there. If not, follow the mountains on towards Bahrain and up past all the way to Bilad Fars. There people do not know Yazid. His power does not reach there. If not, cross over to Abyssinia, where the previous generations of Muslims found safety there. or follow roads this way and that way until Allah decides what to do with you. Hussein smiles, he says, no, this is not our way. This is not the way we conduct our affairs. We do not run away from something. We face evil head onwards. We do not cower away. We do not shy away. And these words of his prove that when he recited this verse, فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا خَائِفًا, he was not afraid for himself. It's another way to prove that he was not afraid for himself, nor for his family. He was afraid for the cities and for the Muslims there. So he leaves Medina and he reaches two paths. And the people say to him, Sayyidi, take the higher path. There you can go through the mountains. It is the path Abdullah bin Zubair took. It is much safer. Yazid's men do not know that way. And you'll be able to take a few days rest there. And the Imam says, no, I will not take the way of cowards, the way where people hide. I have told people I'm going to Kufa, and I have told them I'm leaving Medina and I'm going towards Kufa, and Yazid know this as well. There's no need for me to hide. And so he takes the main way. And the people are going to Hajj. And everybody thinks that the Imam is going to Hajj with them. And he's about to enter Mecca, and everybody's saying, welcome ya Ibn Rasulullah. Abdullah bin Zubair is forced to come and welcome the Imam, even though he does not want to welcome him. Even though he wants the Khilafah for himself. He wants power for himself. And while Al-Hussein is alive, he cannot have power. Because he knows, everybody knows, Al-Hussein is more worthy than anybody else out there. And this is the same reason why Yazid wants to kill Hussein as well. Yazid says that there were three, in the letter that he writes to the governor of Mecca, he says there are three people that you must receive bay'ah from. The first of them is Al-Hussein salamullah. Because he is the one people's hearts gravitate to. He's the one people will always seek to have as a leader. They had their brother before, his brother before him as their leader. They had his father before him as their leader. They had before his grandfather as their leader. So naturally people will want the grandson of the Prophet. Sayyid Shabab Ahl al-Jannah. Is there anybody else out there who is Sayyid Shabab Ahl al-Jannah? Is Yazid Sayyid Shabab Ahl al-Jannah? Is Abdullah bin Zubair? Is Abdullah bin Umar? Is anybody else out there Sayyid Shabab Ahl al-Jannah? No. The only person is Al-Hussein salam. Therefore, if this man is Sayyid Shabab Ahl al-Jannah, he is the most worthy person out there. He says, I narrate from my father, from Rasulullah, from Jibreel, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who else can narrate this very chain? Nobody. Who is more worthy than this man? Nobody. His father is Bab Madinatul Ilm. In the last minutes of the Prophet's life, he says, I heard from the Prophet knowledge. He opened 1,000 doors of knowledge, and each one of those opened 1,000 more doors. Just in the last moments of the Prophet's life. And he lived with the Prophet all his life. I mean, when he says, the Prophet, when I was born, used to chew food for me and put it in my mouth. Because, children, they can't eat. They don't have teeth. Young babies, they need to eat, like liquid food. So he says, the Prophet used to chew the food and then put it in my mouth for me. He says, I used to follow him like the way a baby camel follows its mother. Have you seen herds of animals always go together? Wherever the mother is, the baby is always following the mother. He says, this is what I was like during the Prophet's time. I would follow him wherever he went. When the mission was delivered to the Prophet, when the first time Jibreel commanded the Prophet, revealed revelation to him, he said, I heard a sound. I heard a scream. And I turned to the Prophet, I said, what is that noise? He said, you heard it? I said, yes, Rasulullah. He says, Ajib. You hear what I hear, you see what I see, but I am a prophet and you are not. That was the scream of shaitan. He was so upset that finally I have been ordered to start revelation to the people. And this scream of his knows that he will be defeated in the end. And Amir al-Mu'mineen heard this. He hears what the Prophet hears, he sees what the Prophet sees, but the Prophet is the final Prophet and the Amir is the Wasi. So Al-Hussein salamullah alayhi has this background. This is where he comes from. Nobody else can touch him. Nobody else is even close to this. Neither the sons of the Khulafa, nor their cousins, nor their family members, nor any of the other companions. And while he is there, he's a danger to Yazid and to others. The second of those was Abdullah bin Umar. Abdullah bin Umar was known in the community as a respectful man, as a worshipful man, as somebody who narrated from his father, from the Prophet. He was respected by the people. And Yazid was afraid that people would say, Abdullah bin Umar is more worthy of the Khilafah than you are. But Abdullah bin Umar gave bay'ah. He did not wish to fight. He did not wish to stand up to Yazid. He did not see himself being the Khalifa. So he understood where his place was, he understood his rank, and he said, no, I will give bay'ah, I will not fight. And Yazid had known this. That is why he threatened Abdullah bin Amr. He knew as soon as he was threatened, he would give in. And the third was Abdullah bin Zubair. And he knew that Abdullah bin Zubair wouldn't give bay'ah, not because he wanted to fight for the cause of Islam, not because he wanted to fight to ensure that the Prophet's message was not lost, because he wanted to fight because he saw himself as more worthy of the Khilafah. He should be the Khalifa, not Yazid ibn Muawiyah, ibn Abi Sufyan. I am Abdullah bin Zubair. I am son of one of the greatest companions. I deserve to be Khalifa. See how the mentalities are totally different. The intentions, the niyyah is totally different. So in Mecca, when Imam Hussain enters, and the people immediately, their hearts are surrounding the Imam. Everywhere the Imam goes, people are looking, smiling, wanting to kiss his hand, wanting to receive barakah from him, want to hear hadith from him. And this happens with all the Imams. The poet Farazdaq, the famous incident with Imam Zayn al-Abidin in the Kaaba. Hisham ibn Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, he is yet to be Khalifa. He is governor at that time. Governor of Sham. He is not yet Khalifa. His brother, Al-Walid, is the governor. Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik. So Hisham is a prince from Banu Umayyah. And he comes as Amir al-Hajj. In those times, and even today, we still have this tradition. Amir al-Hajj, the person who leads the Hajj, who is in charge of the proceedings of Hajj. Amir al-Hajj is Hisham ibn Abdul Malik, the brother of the Khalifa, the son of the previous Khalifa, Amir al-Sham, Amir al-Hajj, lots of position, lots of power. He comes with his men. His men carry 40 bags, 40 caravans full of treasure and gold for him to give out to the people and for his wives and for his companions. And they enter Mecca in their hundreds and enter Mecca armed. And we know in the area of Al-Haram, you're not supposed to take weapons into. It is a place of peace. These men do not care. So Hisham enters, he is forced to wear the ihram. See, this is the nobility of al-ihram. This is the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are Khalifa, you are a king, you are so and so, you will wear white, plain, like everybody else. This person is a beggar, this person is ill, this person has no money, and you're a king, you are the same. You're forced to wear the same clothes, you're forced to behave in the same manner. You can't do tawaf by car, you can't do tawaf with your bodyguards. You're treated the same way. Allah forces you to do it this way. It is one way of making you humble. And if you have enough wisdom, you'll realize this. And if you don't, like Hisham, then you don't realize. And Allah teaches you through another method. And that's what happened to Hisham. Him with 200 men tried to enter tawaf. Inshallah, all of you have been or will go to Hajj, especially the young ones. Tawaf, very difficult. It's very, very difficult to do tawaf with a clear intention. To do tawaf without pushing people. To do tawaf focusing on how many rounds you have done. Reading the dua that is mustahab. Remembering your brothers, your sisters, your family members, all your friends who have asked you for dua in the tawaf. Remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking forgiveness, and you are being pushed and shoved, hundreds of people. It is very difficult to do tawaf. And that time it was difficult also. So Hisham enters the tawaf and he's pushed away. People are shouting, this is the brother of the Khalifa, this is Amir al-Hajj. Nobody cares. People are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their mind is with Allah. They don't care Khalifa fulan or Amir fulan. They're not interested. Their mind is occupied with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he tries again and a third time. No hope. Finally he tries to reach Al-Hajar al-Aswad. He gives up the tawaf. He wants to reach Al-Hajar al-Aswad. He thinks he's smart. The most difficult thing to do is to reach Hajar al-Aswad in tawaf. Those who have been know how difficult it is. So he tries to cut in. His men are pushing people. This is Hajj. His men are pushing people, hitting people away, beating people with sticks and with the ends of their sword, like we have sometimes in Mecca. We see this today. And he tries to reach Al-Hajar al-Aswad. He is pushed all the way back. Finally he gives up. He's tired. So he commands his men to put somewhere for him to sit. They put saddles of camels and they make a circle and he sits. He sits like this and he's looking at the people and he's very angry that everybody has managed to do tawaf except him. His swords and his men have not managed to guarantee him tawaf or even access to Hajar al-Aswad. So he's sitting there angrily. In the corner of his eye, he sees a man walking. This man very humbly dressed. Skinny man. frail. He walks slowly. The Syrian men, the people from Sham around him, are watching the scene. This man enters, walks towards the Kaaba. The more he reaches towards the Kaaba, the more people separate from his path. Hisham is looking at the scene, his men are looking, they're amazed. Hisham, Amir al-Hajj, the brother of the Khalifa, the son of the Khalifa, prince from Banu Umayyah, hundreds of men, swords, weapons, no respect. This old man, this skinny man is walking towards the Kaaba. He's not even saying anything, not doing anything. He's on his own, and people are separating. The Imam does his tawaf. Once, twice, 3 times, 7 times. He goes to Hajar al-Aswad. And he stands there, he kisses Hajar al-Aswad calmly, quietly. Nobody is near the Imam. And as he walks past, people are kissing his hand. People are kissing his head. People are touching his cloak. People are touching his feet. Anybody trying to reach the Imam is receiving barakah. Because they know who he is. And he finishes and he goes back the same way. Quietly, pleasantly, without harming anyone. Abdul Malik, or Hisham bin Abdul Malik is fuming. He's so angry. The Syrian men are asking each other, who is this? Is he an Amir? Is he from Banu Umayyah? Is he king of this area? Is he king from another land? Did he give these people money? Is he in charge of the haram? Who is this person? Are these his men? How come he was able to do tawaf so easily? Who is this person who is more important than this man we're with, who's going to be the next Khalifa? What position does this person have? And Hisham is hearing this. This is the reason why they did not like Ahl Sham to come to Hijaz. They did not let them go to Hajj much. They would only allow a few hundred to go to Hajj. They were afraid because if they came to Mecca and Medina, they would see who the real Ahl al-Bayt were, who the real leaders of Islam were, who the real Khulafa were. That's why a very limited number would go on Hajj those times. That is why even they would say, do not go to Medina, go to Mecca only and come back. Because Medina is the city of the Prophet, the city of Ahl al-Bayt. So these soldiers are asking each other, who is this man? Anybody knows? Al-Farazdaq, poets at that time, until today, poets need a way to live. If you're going to write something, you need to be rewarded for it. You need somebody to publish it for you. You can't do it on your own. So poets usually side with somebody. Not believers in their path, but as a method of ensuring their money or their poetry is rewarded. Their poetry reaches the right places. And especially in the times of tyrannical leaders, times of unjust people, the unjust kings censor everything. Censor books, censor visits, censor speeches, censor hadith, censor the internet, and so on and so forth. So you need a way of making sure your poetry is read. So Al-Farazdaq, he goes to Bani Umayyah and he recites poetry. Not for them. He recites poetry, for example, about Arabia, about Hijaz, about Allah, about the Prophet, about many things. And these princes from Bani Umayyah reward him for his money, make sure that he's able to write the rest of his poetry without trouble. So he's accompanying Hisham. And he's standing next to Hisham. So these men are asking each other. Finally, one of them asks Hisham bin Abdul Malik. They say, Ya Amir, who is this man? What is the response from Hisham bin Abdul Malik? We can tell what the response is going to be. He says, I do not know. This is Hisham ibn Abdul Malik ibn Marwan from Banu Umayyah. This is the one who is going to fight Zayd ibn Ali, who is going to fight many members of the Ahl al-Bayt. This is somebody who knows who the Ahl al-Bayt are deeply and intimately. This is somebody who was born in the Hijaz, who understands the people of Hijaz, who knows exactly who Zayn al-Abidin is, and who Hussain is, and Hassan is, and Ali is, and Fatima and Muhammad. They know exactly who they are. And he says, I do not know. I do not know who this man is. Now here, this is where nobility comes. This is where anybody who has ghira, anybody who has sharaf, stands up. Okay, the hadith from the Prophet says, if you can't fight injustice through using the hand, through combat, fight it through your tongue. At least use your tongue to stand up for the Ahl Bayt, to stand up for al-haq. And this is where we see an example. Farazdaq stands. He says, Ya Amir, Ali al-Aman, do you give me security? Do you give me safe passage to say something? Hisham is forced to say yes, because there are 200 men wanting to know the answer. He says, okay. And Farazdak recites a very beautiful poem. Those of you who understand the Arabic language, go home tonight, type Farazdak into Google, poem, and you see what poem comes up. It is a beautiful poem. And he explains exactly who this man is. He says, this man is the son of Mecca and Mina. This man is the son of the Haram. This man, in his house, is where you can see the footprints of Jibreel. This man in his house, where the first adhan was recited. This man in his house, when the angels used to knock at the door to ask permission to go in. And so on and so forth. Reciting beautiful verses of poetry about Imam Zain al-Abidin. And afterwards, Hisham bin Hakam imprisons Al-Farazdak because he dared to say what the virtues of the Ahl Bayt are. Anyway, so we are talking about what leaders do in Hajj specifically, and we're talking about standing up for the Ahl Bayt. And when Hussein entered Hajj, it was a similar scene. Hundreds of people around him. Everybody trying to seek barakah. And the Imam goes in with a pure intention. Abdullah bin Zubair goes in trying to recruit men. He sees you and you and you. He says, come. I will make you general of this army. I'll make you leader of that army. I'll give you wilayah of this area. I'll give you wilayah of that area. I'll make you Emir of Yemen, Emir of Bahrain. Fight with me. Bring your tribe with me. He's in Hajj and he's planning warfare. What is the Imam doing? He's giving people advice, narrating hadith, telling people the correct way to do the Hajj. He sits and people come to him, masail every day. Sayyidi, I did this way, I did that this way, I forgot this. Is my Hajj correct? Is my A'mal correct? Did I miss something out? And he would say, Hajj ya Hajj, this is the correct way. Go ahead, do your Hajj. This is fine, this is okay. He would give people instructions about how to do their Hajj. And at the same time, revealing to people the true hadith from the Prophet. Because at the time, hadith was forbidden. If you narrated hadith, you were beaten. If you stood, for example, or you sat where I'm sitting and you started to recite hadith from the Prophet, you were imprisoned or beaten. Some people were killed because they narrated hadith. Maytham al-Tammar. Because he was reciting hadith from the Prophet, he was killed. He was crucified and then he was killed because he carried on, even while he was crucified, carried on speaking hadith from the Prophet about Ahl Bayt Salam. And Ahl Bayt always wanted to say, this is what the Prophet said, not what we are saying. We have al-hadith, al-silsila al-dhahabiyya. This hadith is when Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha was ordered to go from Medina to Tus by al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi. Abdullah al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi, son of Harun al-Rashid. He writes a letter to the Imam. He says, you must join me in Tus. The Imam writes back saying, no, my home is here. He says, you join me or terrible things will happen. He forces the Imam to leave. The Imam passes many days, hundreds of miles, all the way up until Tus. One of the towns he passes through is called Nishapur. Those of you who go to Iran to visit, to go to Mashhad, go to Nishapur. It's a nice town. It's a very pretty town. They have something there called Qadam Gah, which is the footprint of Imam al-Ridha. And they have also Shatita, a famous story about her. Another time we'll talk about her. And they have some companions of the Imams buried there as well. It's a nice town. You should go to Nishapur. So the Imam is passing through Nishapur. Nishapur at that time was a big city. Not like it is now, it's a small town. Before it was a big city. Lots of ulama there. Lots of reciters of the Quran. And they welcoming the Imam. Tens of thousands of people. And the Imam is sat in the caravan, quietly, silently, passing through the town. People are begging. Say something to us. Reveal a hadith to us. Tell us something. The Imam does not want to say anything because he knows that Ma'mun is watching his every footstep. If the Imam says something here, Ma'mun's people will do bad things to him. So the Imam is quiet. As he's about to leave the town, so many people are crowded around the carriage, begging, pulling at the curtains, begging the Imam to say something. So the Imam comes out. Tens of thousands of people there. And everybody falls silent. He says, عن أبي الكاظم عن أبيه الصادق عن أبيه الباقر عن أبيه السجاد عن أبيه الحسين عن أبيه أمير المؤمنين عن رسول الله عن جبرائيل عن Allah. Look at this chain. Who else apart from the Ahl Bayt could say this kind of chain of narration? Nobody. Look at this beautiful chain. Every single one of them is the best person of their time, all the way to Allah. كلمة لا إله إلا الله حصني فمن دخلها أمن من عذابه. Whoever says La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah is my fortress. Whoever enters my fortress, whoever says La ilaha illallah is protected. And everybody is so happy to have heard such a beautiful narration with this beautiful chain, which is why they called it a silsila dhahabiyya, the golden chain. And the Imam enters the carriage, it moves one step, and he stops the carriage and he comes out and he says, بِشَرْطِهَا وَشُرُوطِهَا وَأَنَا مِنْ شُرُوطِهَا. But with its conditions. You will be saved, yes, with conditions. And I am one of its conditions. La ilaha illallah on its own, without me, without us, does not guarantee you protection. Even La ilaha illallah has its condition, and I am one of its conditions. This is a hadith, a silsila dhahabiyya. Everybody should learn this hadith. It's a beautiful hadith. So this is what the Ahl Bayt were like. When they got a chance, they would tell people the true hadith. Not themselves, not I say this and I say that. No. This is what Allah says. This is what Allah told Jibreel, who told Muhammad, who told Ali, who told us. Not what we heard or what we think. Like some of the other ulama of their time. My opinion is this, and my opinion is that. And na'mal bil qiyas, and na'mal bil ijtihad, and so on and so forth. The Imams don't do that. They say this is what we received from Rasulullah, and he received it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We did not receive it from any other way. So Imam Hussain salamullah alayhi enters Mecca. Thousands of people are thronged around him. And he spends his days guiding the people and leaves on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, Yawm al-Tawri. On his way, he meets Al-Farazdaq, the poem. And Imam says to him, who are you? He says, Ana Fulan ibn Fulan. He says, where have you come from? From Iraq, replies Farazdaq. He says, how have you left the people there? What is the state of the people there? He says, Sayyidi, their hearts are with you and their swords are against you. قلوبهم معك وسيوفهم عليك. And the Imam says, Sadaqt. Wallah, this is the most truthful statement I have heard. You are correct. The people of Iraq, their hearts are with us, but their swords are against us. He says, Sayyidi, if I am so truthful, why are you going to Iraq? He says, because Allah has declared it. Allah has meant it this way. He has divine wisdom. There is a result from this that Allah wants. Things we do not understand now, we will only see later on. Things that are not clear to you now. That are not clear to maybe some of my companions. And several times he stops and he tells the companions, at the beginning there were more than 1,000 men that left with Hussein. 72 were killed in the end, but when they left there were more than 1,000 people with him. And every chance he got, he would stop the caravans and he would say to the people, to his companions, if you have come for gold or treasure or for booty, or if you've come for position or for something in this dunya, go back. If you have come thinking that you will return to your family, that you will be saved at the last minute, that you will not be injured or harmed, go back. This road leads to shahada, leads to martyrdom. If you come with me, you will surely die. So every night, 10 people leave, 20 people leave, 50 people leave, 100. Those who came for money and wealth, those who did not want to fight, those who came because they felt ashamed. Maybe they were his friends and they did not want to leave the Imam. They felt ashamed. If your best friend asks you for help, you will leave with your best friend. But now they saw this is very serious. He's taken his family and he's telling people, I'm going to be killed. You will be killed with me if you come. So every night, 10 and 20, in the middle of the night, they depart. They leave. And the time Imam reaches Karbala, there's less than 100 men with him. And the night of the 10th arrives. Zainab salamullah alayhi asks Al-Hussein, are you sure of your men? Do you trust your men? He says, yes. By Allah, I have tested each and every one of them. And they have said to me, if they were killed 1,000 times, they would still not leave me. This is what the Ansar said to Imam salamullah alayhi. And after the companions are killed, after Al-Abbas is killed, after Ali al-Akbar, after the Banu Hashim are slaughtered one by one, Imam remains on his own. Peace be upon him. And for the final time, he goes in to the camp. And he's ready to leave again. So compare this to when he leaves Mecca and when he leaves Medina. In Medina, surrounded by his family. The grave of the Prophet is next to him. The city where he grew up, hundreds of people around him. Everybody's saying farewell to him. In Mecca, the same. In Medina, in Karbala, who's saying farewell to him? Zainab, salamullah. Al-Abbas is dead. Ali al-Akbar is dead. Ali al-Asghar is dead. Muslim is dead. Habib is dead. Aoun is dead. The narrations say the Imam, everywhere he walked, there was a body. There was a body here, there was a body there. He did not have time to bury every single one of them. Blood was everywhere. And Zainab looks at him and says, where are you going? You have brought us here. Take us back. There's a famous Arab poem. Sayyid Abdul Hussain al-Shara, Allah yarahmah. It's in the Iraqi dialect. It says, Zainab lifat yam Hussain, lakin gab abham. تقل يا ضوء عيوني عليه من هالفزع ملته. Why are all these people here? What are they here for? What do they want? يقلها خاف اسولف لك وجهك ينخطف لونه شتلي وشتله البيت القوم يردونه. I don't want to tell you because I'm afraid for you. What these people want is to have me killed, to kill all of us. Zainab pleads with the Imam, do not leave us. The Imam says, I must. I have no other choice. Zainab then stands and says, Rabab Kulthum, Sukayna Ruqayya, Halumma wa tazawwadu min wada'i Abi Abdullah. She calls out the women, come and say the final farewell before Hussein leaves. This is the last time you will see him. One child is holding on the left, another child is holding on the right. Infants are grabbing onto the clothes of the Imam. Everybody is crying. Sukain is pleading with the Imam, kissing his hand. Oh Father, do not leave me, please. Stay with me. I cannot live without you. Take us back to where you brought us from. He says, I cannot do that. Allah has decreed that we die here. She says, then I have one last request. What, Ya Sukaina? She says, wipe your hand on my head like the way you do with the orphans. He says, why, Ya Sukaina? I am still alive. She said, yes, but after you are killed, there is no one left to wipe their head with their hand. I will be on my own. Abu Abdullah turns and leaves, and he hears the women in the background. And he says, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I have done my best. Allah, if this is what you asked, then take. I give you freely. Take from me what you want. My friends, my brothers, my sons, my family, take. Sacrifice in your way is the most beautiful thing we have. And Hussein salamullah alayhi leaves on his own. And Zainab remains on her own. The night of the 10th comes, the night of the 11th comes, and there is nobody there but Zainab. One child she's trying to keep quiet, another, the clothes are burning of the child, she puts the fire out. In the night she goes to visit each one of the graves. She hears women crying over here, she hears Rabab crying over there. She hears Kulthum crying over here, and she's trying to take care of each one of them. This is the job of Zainab salamullah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Al-Aliyyul Azim. Wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalibun yanqalibun wal aqibatu lil muttaqin. Brothers, let us recite dua, please, for all of those who are in need of help, all of those who have asked us for dua in these holy nights. Inshallah, the dua is mustajab. There's a particular verse from the Quran, inshallah, we shall recite. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يا الله اللهم بالحسين الوجيه وجده وأبيه وأمه وأخيه والتسعة المعصومين من ذريته وابنه اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج واجعلنا من أنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعوا فيها طويلا. اللهم عافي وشافي كل مريض، اللهم فرج كل مكروب، اللهم ارحمنا برحمتك الواسعة، اللهم أرنا الحق حقا فنتبعه والباطل باطلا فنجتنبه. اللهم ارحم علماءنا الماضين واحفظ الباقين، لا سيما مراجعنا العظام مراجع الدين. إلى أرواح خدمة الحسين وإلى أرواحكم جميعا وإلى أرواح من ساهم في هذا المجلس نهدي ثواب سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.